All right. So I did a slideshow about the psychology of a loser and stuff, and well, it gives such a it can set such a negative tone and stuff. Um, so I decided to do the positive version of it and stuff. You know, if I could be aware that I'm possibly being toxic and stuff, I might as well just stop and turn on a dime and turn it around and stuff. So there. Um, so the psychology of winner, like what's going on in these winners' heads that allows them to win? Like what is this scaffolding that were and the tanks where all the juice and processes and stuff flow in that certain way to make those those awesome actions and stuff, you know? Is it endless suffering? Is it endless enjoyment? No, actually. Not and it's not necessarily one or the other. Actually, I learned that that winners and stuff, they they go easy on themselves and they enable themselves. They don't wait for the world to enable them and stuff. They self-enable, you know. They you know, they just get right to it and go after it and stuff. They don't, they don't let they don't let like some inertia or tiredness get in their fucking way. They just go out and fucking do it. Okay? And if you want to bitch and moan about my cursing and stuff, whatever. Just go drink your soy milk. I don't care. I really don't. And stuff. People like you are just for filling the air with bitching. So whatever. So and let's get into it. So who are some examples of some of the biggest winners of all time? People who never look back or are absolutely crushing in different areas of life. There's too many. There's too many to mention. There's just too many. So you know, winners understand and see positive consequences from the following systems: the legal system, society, work systems, everyday life systems, thinking systems. There's probably more, but I don't remember them all now. Winning is not really genetic in the colloquial sense. The body also has countergenes and other adaptive mechanisms. The psyche develops to stay locked in on winning behaviors. This is the scientific mechanism for why they can self-enable to do things and stuff when at first or at later for too long things are hard and stuff. You know, so there's that. They don't let their past or present define their future. Even if they have 10,000 bad days in a row, 40 bad years in a row, they will still find the oomph, the fire of spirit to make a killer performance and turn it all around, no matter what area of life it is. Because winners never ever get pushed off of life's cliff. They do not quit. If they've never done it before, they're not scared either. Winners have internal control over their feelings and attention. Okay? They don't blow their chips, so to speak. They have self-respect or self-humility. Whatever love or hatred they have for humanity is never betrayed by the life they have brought on themselves. See, a person without self-respect or self-humility and stuff betrays whatever love they have for any person, a person, the person, and stuff. However you want to term it, and stuff. Because they don't know how to treat a person, and so they don't know how to view a person and stuff. So they don't have self-respect or self-humility. They just can't. They are conscious of their own health and emotional needs. Okay. When they're feeling down and stuff, they're not gonna, they they do something about it. You know, whether it's by themselves or through another person, whatever. They value education, training, and such things much more than any other person. They know that personality is not set in stone. They don't wear their heart in their sleeve for people who deliberately mentally injure them and stuff. These people don't set themselves up to be emotional victims. Not that they do it, not that, the losers do it deliberately and stuff. It's just that winners just don't do it. They just tend not to do it. They understand that other people's perception comes from their level as people and is not to be taken as a command. They don't care about looking too smart or too powerful, whatever, when they need to be obvious. Okay? They dare. They manage the consequences. They win. They don't give a fuck about scaring anybody in the process because they're not cowards. Okay? Winners have humility, compassion, empathy, kindness, politeness, likability, loving, pleasantness, or anything in that neighborhood. They're all in the same neighborhood. These are all traits that make a person good at the point of social behavior evaluation. You know, because, society makes its own judgments and carries out its own sentences, so to speak. It's not all about the law. Winners are respectful of life's penal systems, and they're prone to benefiting from them. A very important philosophical book teaches that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of the wisdom, right? That could also be taken as secular advice. Abiding this is doing the same thing as being respectful of those penal systems. But life will make you triage between the following: ethics, justice, love, humanism, etc., and following the rules, sometimes based on what the best outcome is. We all try to follow the rules as best we can, as long as we can, while eagerly trying to catch the big fish in life. Okay? Good self-management. Winners know how to manage themselves. Never admitting to circumstance. Because one must challenge circumstance, one has to give the lie to circumstance by changing it. We might choose to force the issue to give the lie to a claim without assessing whether it is true, and we might admit to everything that is true, but we should never be content with how things are when they could be better. They never think in terms of what is or what was causing a cycle. This prevents often cyclical behavior, unlike the losers of life. The alcoholic often finds themselves back at the bottle. The cokehead often finds themselves back frying their dopamine receptors with the white nose candy. The oaf finds themselves constantly grabbing at air and living in perpetual tantrums. The lazy student often finds themselves back at uncompetitive grades. The conventionally treatment-resistant, undermining habits are a result of a deficient character. Okay? Like wisdom, I'm going to say personality instead. Like wisdom, so many philosophers taught so many things throughout history, even if you don't, quote unquote, respect the Lord. And so, regardless of your religion, science, etc., you cannot deny the fruits of recorded examination, or at least the thinking skills that rendered it and stuff. So, if you're religious or not, if you like religion or not and stuff, it doesn't matter. And so, this still stands too. The philosophers of history, be they the teachers of our subjects of interest or as old and removed from time as Epicurus or Hypatia, still have the information to consider to give ideas in present or future issues, teach new concepts, etc. A lot of this stuff is still very foundational to the beliefs and systems of today, from liberalism to market-driven economics to social safety nets to Protestant work ethic. It's all that stuff. Winners find their nuts to do something about their problems. They don't wait for someone else to do their life for them. Life cannot be lived for you by anyone else. They're not afraid to try to develop a knack. They never obsess over stupid things. Some people will constantly talk, obsess, etc. over minutia like a square of paint or something for minutes and never catch any big fish. The losers, they fixate on like the looks, the smells, the sounds and stuff, and it's like this. But winners, they're focused on ideas, solutions. Their thinking is more mature. They remember their long-term. Winners remember their long-term goal and live it in the present until they reach there. Even if it results in them having that 40,000 bad days in a row. After that, they still go after it. Because they figured it out. They make the sky the limit or just have a lot of ambition. Losers do not attempt to get the most out of themselves. They think their conception of reality is final. See? Winners don't think it's final. They don't say, "Oh, this is it. This is as good as it's going to get. I'm never doing this again." No. They're definitely finishers. They're heavily critical of themselves or their work, and they don't delude themselves into thinking they cannot mature. Adult mindset focused on facts, reasoning. Winners have an adult mindset focused on facts, reasoning, ideas, plans, solutions, problems, how to execute them, etc. This way, they are never grabbing at air. They don't get to this childish mindset of what will others think about me if I make this change and move up in my life, or why aren't I having fun like a little kid, and other sentimental mindsets. They're different than losers because losers often care too much about how others feel when the losers go to work hard at something because they appeal to their underminers, player haters, etc. A winner will look as ridiculous stupid as they need to in order to finish that degree, carry out their officer's orders, complete the mission, get the 4.0 GPA, whatever. They don't care if they smell, have messy hair, etc. because in the end their life will be in a better position, and that is winning. Okay? They don't give away their hustle. Most people abuse that information and will not pay credit or tribute to the person who put them in their game. It's like this rule, this law that I teach and stuff. It's inescapable. When you trust in the external, sooner or later the external betrays in one way or another and stuff. You have a brain to control your body and everything. You have all this stuff. You have so many variations, you cannot be stopped. That's almost like a divine power of the human. That's a power that a person has that so many things in his environment do not and stuff. So humans in this respect are so anomalous, so anomalous in their capacity to improve circumstance and to change and stuff. They don't believe what other people personally tell them because they know where to get good information from. Okay? They don't think that they have to copy other people. They have made a person in them that they can like that is all them, all their own, and they don't care about that fake posturing bullshit that people do a lot. America is a melting pot of the best, weirdest, most wondrous people, and we should appreciate it. We should. They know how to recover from trauma, or they get help when they're too dinged up. They don't harm themselves over their pain. They look for healthy ways to solve their problems. They then proceed with health and don't force the issue too much so they can keep winning all day. They don't give a shit about how other people go about their day. They do what realistically works for them. They don't get intimidated when they're out of their league. They look the beast in the eye, figure out how to dominate it, and do it, even if it is agonizing, tiresome, dangerous, etc. Real winners hunt down beasts of problems and learn to enjoy it, because they understand it's either this or break even. And below that, life is you've basically quit life. Life is done. You're just above dead, or whatever. Winners don't lose heart, they don't get gas, and they don't quit until it's time to sleep. I know motherfuckers that almost died several times in Iraq, Afghanistan, fighting terrorist dog shaggers and still went on to do great things. So, people in there, they saw horrific things, endured horrific things. But when they came back, they still did amazing, amazing things. They have the propensity for successive win-backs or get-backs when life stops, ties them up, leaves them puzzled, mentally overwhelmed, etc. What the losers, unlike the winners, fail to understand is that thinking skills are as good as gold bullion, and they are not content with not understanding or comprehend something. Not comprehending something. They're critical thinkers, problem solvers, students, practitioners, skilled, etc., are effective in civilization. But even a fool can become very skilled and loses foolishness because hard work builds the mind to be stronger. Okay? They find they're nuts to do something. They don't let anybody or life itself mess with them, and they don't allow themselves to be dominated. Winners don't tear others down or take from others, not just because they don't want the hassle of the trouble, but because they know the truth that they know that they don't need to player hate. They're not like, this is to say they're not chronic player haters and stuff. It's not their personality and stuff. It's tough to say whether player hating is characteristic or not, depending on the volume, frequency, fervency, blah blah blah, whether a person enjoys it and stuff. But winners don't tear others down because they know it's a loser strategy. They don't want to initiate this conflict with other people. It minimizes the conflicts they have with other people and stuff, which gives them time and space to really be successful and, control the results more. They're not gonna hang their achievements in your face wave their achievements in your face all the time and stuff, um, to try to tease you, whatever. Because they're living life more of how it's in a more successful way and stuff. They're trying to have peaceful or good relationships with others. Okay, so that's some of the psychology of a winner.